Ricky A. Bender, uh, April 12th, 1946, United States Marine Corps, Sergeant E6.
Where and when were you born?
When and where was I born? I was born in Chicago, Illinois.
What was your parents' occupation?
They were blue-collar workers.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
One brother, one sister.
What were you doing before entering the service?
I was a dockhand for Railway Express.
Do you have other family members that served as well?
Not in Vietnam, no.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the service?
I was kind of like both. I went down, I was going to be drafted. So when I went down for my physical, I passed, and a recruiter grabbed a hold of me and made a couple promises that just never turned out, so I enlisted in the Marines, based on the promise that I was going to get sea duty. Never happened.
If you enlisted, why did you choose your specific branch of service?
Because of family members. My uncle before me was in the Marines, and he was kind of like a role model for me.
Tell us about your departure and early days of training camp.
Departure what?
Departure and early days of training camp.
Well, I trained in my boot camp. Basic training was in California, San Diego, MCRD, and I had my initial boot training and advanced infantry training there. And then I had joined the 2nd Marine Division in North Carolina. And we were aboard ships floating around out there around Cuba, and training exercises. That was interesting and rewarding.
Did you receive any specialized training?
Yes, I did. I attended the Fort Sherman. It's an army camp in Panama Canal Zone. It's right in the heart of the jungle. And I received jungle training, escape and evasion. It was very rewarding. The Army Special Forces ran the camp, and felt pretty privileged to have that. Some good training.
What was it like adapting to military life?
At first it was difficult, but eventually you make friends, and you kind of fall into the routine, and you kind of accept that, hey, I'm here. Make the best out of it. So I think the friendships that you make carry you through and give you the strength to carry on.
Where did you serve?
I served in Vietnam. I was there in July of 1967 through August of 1968. Those were big years. A lot of combat in those years. That was called the Tet Offensive of 1968.
Can you give us details of your trip abroad?
Well, there really wasn't much to say. Really, you left the States early in the morning aboard a chartered jet. I think we made a couple stops. Wound up in Okinawa, and that was a brief stop before onto South Vietnam. Arrived in South Vietnam and was immediately assigned to a company, battalion. And at that time, we were running Rough Riders, security for convoys from a fire base by the name of Dang Ha up to Khe Sanh. And we were security for that convoy. And we were pretty lucky on that. Just a week before, the convoy got ambushed, took a lot of casualties, but we made it through, uneventful.
What kind of action did you witness, or what were your duties on the front line?
Well, I suppose the biggest event was the Battle of Khe Sanh. It was called the Siege of Khe Sanh, and they documented it as being 77 days being sieged by the North Vietnamese Army. And it was a fire base in what we call I Corps. That was the demilitarized zone. And this here fire base was an obstacle to the enemy because it overlooked the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was a large infiltration route that the North Vietnamese used to infiltrate the South Vietnam. And during that time, 77 days, you kind of you saw a little bit of everything. The enemy, we were 5,000 strong in a perimeter called the base camp, and there was 40,000 NVA soldiers who had us surrounded, cut off. And supplies were coming in through air, but because of the losses of the aircraft and helicopters, they closed the airstrip. So everything that was coming into us, the supplies that we needed on a daily basis, was dropped by parachute. And that was quite challenging. And during the course of the 77 days, you saw we were constantly pinned down or harassed by enemy artillery, mortars, rockets, recoilless rifles. And there were times when you spoke to a friend and 5 minutes later the friend wasn't there anymore. Literally. Maybe a boot. And that was pretty tough. There were some tough times there. I found it to be a very terrifying experience. Something that doesn't go away. And something you always remember. I'm proud of my service.
What were your emotions relating to combat?
Something that you don't forget. Terrifying. Without being too graphic. It's a very terrifying experience.
What kind of friendships or camaraderie was formed?
The best ever. The best ever. In fact, you've made the best friends that you've ever made, and it seems like I've only made one relationship since then that even resembles the friendships and that you had. You certainly formed the bond among brothers that if you don't it's hard to say, but it's the relationships you'll never forget, the people you'll never forget. And as time goes on and on and on, you certainly miss them even more and more and more. And I can't feel how proud I am of the men that I served with, who gallantly gave their lives, not only for their friends in the Marine Corps, but for their country. And it's so sad for so many of them have been so young not to have matured to have family and children and carried on with the rest of their lives. But they sacrificed their life for this country. And it's something that I'm so proud of, that I had served with them. And they are truly the heroes.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends at home?
By letter, and also by cassette, which was pretty unique. But was nice about it is that we could mail them and it was free. So we could mail it anywhere that we wanted to. And it was no charge to us. And it was nice to hear the voices. And actually, I have probably a set of 15 of these from the time I arrived to the time I left. So I have to find a way to put them together. But it'd be a hell of a documentary, because it's certainly conversation as it happened. So I have to find a way to put that together. But that was one of the main choices for me to keep in communications with my loved ones.
Can you tell us about your recreation or off-duty pursuits?
Recreation. I didn't have any. Well, no, that's not true. I had R&R, rest and recuperation. And I had my choice. There were several different choices, and I chose Australia. And loved every minute of it. It's ironic to this day that my middle son is now living in Australia, which I would never even dreamed of. And he's certainly visiting some of the places that I had visited on my R&R, which was Sydney and etc. It's very, very interesting, but I really enjoyed it. But you know, there's mishaps too. The fellow my partner on R&R, after R&R, we had to return back to Vietnam, up to Khe Sanh, and he didn't make it. He didn't make it back home. I often think of him. And recreation, other than that, I have to tell you, that was about it. We, like I say, pretty busy time on the DMZ for Marines at that time. Seemed like it was operation after operation.
Did you return home before the war ended?
Yes, I did. I returned home. I left Vietnam in August of '68 and returned home. Just a brief stay. I was home for leave, and I had to return back to the military. I returned back to Quantico, Virginia, to finish my time.
How did you return home?
By commercial air. We were flown out of Vietnam to Okinawa once again. There's a big Marine base there, ever since World War II. And basically, change of clothes, some good chow and showers, and get us all cleaned up to come back home. So there for a few days and back on a commercial flight. Landed at Edwards Air Force Base in San Francisco. I remember all of us coming down the steps, and the first thing we did was get down and kiss the ground. Thank God for USA. That's until we got to the parking lot. And that was a little different story. A lot of folks who were opposed to the war wanted to greet us also.
What was your reception like by family and community?
Very warm. Very warm. My father picked me up at the airport. And when I got home, I had my family waiting for me, girlfriend. And it was different. It was very different. You don't, you can't, you need a time to adjust. One of the biggest things that at least I did, that I missed, and I had to get over it, was walking around without my weapon. I carried my weapon and slept with my weapon and woke up to it and went to bed to it for 13 months. And all of a sudden now I'm walking around with my hands in my pocket and something didn't seem right. But I had a nice welcome home.
How do you readjust to civilian life?
It was tough at first. Very different. One of my experiences where it was, I wanted to go back to school, and I did. But unfortunately, I felt very uncomfortable. Here I'm wearing straight leg pants and still partially of my military haircut. And the guy standing next to me is wearing bell bottoms and has hair down to his shoulders and big peace sign on his chest, and kind of different. And I just feel like I didn't belong. And I could never betray. I think that's a good word for it. The service of my fellow Marines. especially those who didn't make it back. I will always honor and respect their service. And always tried to the rest of my life be respectful and tried to be deserving of the fact that I made it back and they didn't.
Have you stayed in contact with fellow veterans, and how?
Oh yeah, there's a couple. In fact, we have a group of veterans that we meet every week, and certainly have developed some great friendships, and John being one of them. And we talk to each other on a daily basis.
How have wartime experiences affected your life?
Very much so. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's a constant struggle. I'm on a medication for that, and it's a struggle, but you maintain. You do what you have to do, and I think that's part of who you are and where you've been.
What lessons have you learned from your military service?
Discipline, dedication, that's it. I brought a couple of items with me today. These are always some of the items that you carried with you every day. You know, it's some people want to know, you know, what you had with you every day. These are a magazine pouch and M16 magazines inside. And on an average, you'd probably carry 3, 6, 9, 12, at least 12 magazines, at least. And maybe 150 rounds, besides everything else that you carried. And probably one of the lifesavers is the poncho, especially on a day like we're having it right now, today. And this is what you wore during the cold, mist, and rainy season. It's a poncho liner, and this is like a raincoat. Kept you nice and warm. Kept you nice and warm. And believe it or not, everybody looks at the temperatures, and yeah, there were the temperatures of 120 plus. But you know, come evening, when the sun goes down, and even if it's only 70 or 65, you're cold versus the drastic drop in temperature. So believe it, and up in Khe Sanh, you're up in the mountains. It was, and not far from the ocean. So it was very chilly. And one thing about Khe Sanh it was known for was the fog, the mist and the fog, every day. Every day it would come in as early as maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it would last throughout the evening, and sometimes as late as 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. There were times before it cleared up. So it was pretty challenging, not only having the darkness, but the fog, included. So you can imagine you're kind of like, there were times you were feeling your way around and kind of holding on to your buddy next to you. Still, just, knowing that who was there. Make sure you had somebody with you. But it was, those items were something that you carried with